My name is Amit Saha, and I'm a Watson Solution Architect. Rather than doing a product demonstration, I'm going to tell you the story of how I used Watson Explorer Content Analytics with one of the major auto manufacturers to find real-life problems in publicly available consumer complaints. We loaded all the consumer complaints that have been received by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, or NHTSA, since 1994 into Watson and started to explore the data without doing any customization of the data. For the purposes of this video, we've changed the names of certain car models to something more generic. Otherwise, this is genuine NHTSA data that anyone can access. Consumer complaints that are reported to the government contain a mix of structured information, such as make, model, and year of the car, along with a large unstructured field where the consumer can describe the details of their complaint. Standard business analytic tools are adept at dealing with the structured elements of the complaint, but find it difficult to make sense of what is in the unstructured text. Often, the safety analysts have to manually read through dozens, if not hundreds of reports daily and try to remember what the connections are between them. We started by looking at 2 weeks' worth of data to see if we could find anything interesting. We first examined which models of car were involved during this period. It's one thing to look at the frequency that a particular model is mentioned, but it can be more meaningful to examine how strongly correlated a model is for this particular period of time. Watson Content Analytics continually calculates a correlation index as the scope of analysis changes, helping us to understand what the statistical outliers are in our data. When sorting by correlation, we noticed that a model of car made by this manufacturer, we'll call it Model A, rose to the top of the list. The high correlation index is telling us that even though there's a relatively low number of incidents for this model, it was statistically unusual and we should investigate further. We drilled down on complaints about this model of car and looked to see which component was involved, and it was overwhelmingly the steering. None of this was unknown to our auto manufacturer, as we've only been exploring structured data elements and their standard business intelligence tools were reporting this trend. What they didn't know was why the problem was happening. This led us to examine the language that people were using in their complaints. We keyed in on noun phrases, which are excellent for understanding topic of conversation. Remember that we're looking at problems with steering on the Model A in the last 12 days. So it's not unusual that we see phrases that involve the word steering. However, one of the people in the room remarked that the phrase low speed was unusual. What does that have to do with steering? We drilled down on this and looked at the relevant complaints. The answer jumped out at us. We noticed that there were several complaints where people mentioned that power steering was going out, usually at low speed. Was this truly a systemic problem or a statistical blip? We expanded our search to complaints for all of 2014 and examined an additional 3 models of cars that are built on the same chassis as Model A. Let's call them Model B, C, and D. Being built on the same chassis means that, from an engineering perspective, they're essentially the same car. After drilling down into steering issues for these 4 models of cars, one of the safety analysts in the room remarked, "The data speaks for itself." Phrases like low speed, slow speed, parking lot, parking spot, left turn, sharp turn, all low-speed maneuvers, were frequently mentioned throughout the complaints. It was obvious to the people in the room that there was a problem with the power assist on these models of cars, and indeed a safety recall ended up being issued for these cars shortly thereafter. A second, equally important approach to diagnosing safety issues with Watson is to utilize the Content Analytics Studio configuration tool. This tool helps us create natural language rules that understand business-related concepts. In this example, we're focusing on power steering failures and airbag non-deployment. These natural language rules allow us to identify abstract concepts and find key phrases no matter how they're expressed in written text. Abstract concepts become dimensions for complex analysis, which was previously impossible with standard business intelligence tools.